Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making this flower pattern vest. It is pretty beginner friendly, but I will say you do need to know a lot of different stitches for this pattern, so if you don't know them, I would go back and watch my ultimate beginner tutorial because I show all of them in that. Otherwise, let's get into our materials. We have weight for acrylic yarn. You can pretty much use any weight for yarn, scissors, darning needle, and 4.25mm hook. Starting off our first row, the one important thing about this pattern is that we need to be working in multiples of 22. So I'll put those on the screen, but they're going to be pretty basic. It's going to be like 22, 44, 66, etc. And the way that this top works is it doesn't go all the way around. We're going to tie it on the sides. So if there's like a little bit of wiggle room, that's completely fine. I would say it kind of depends on how you want it to fit. If you're fine with it being a little oversized, then add another flower. But if you'd rather it not be oversized, you could go one less flower. You could technically also adapt it by doing like a couple extra stitches on the sides of each panel. So like, for example, if you'd rather there be like 10 more stitches, you could do 5 double crochets on both sides of every single row. The only thing is that it might be a little bit hard to remember that because I'm not going to be doing that. So you definitely will have to like make a note for yourself that you're going to be doing that every single row. But that's definitely an option if you're like so far in between flowers that it's like too hard to decide. Every row, I'm just going to be explaining what to do for 2 flowers, but if you have more flowers than that, just repeat the section that you have left over to add your next flower. So starting off our first row, making a slip knot, putting our hook in, chaining 2, and we're going to make a row of foundation single crochets. So going into the side 2 loops of the first chain, pulling through, yarn over, pull through 1, and yarn over, pull through 2. Then you're just going to tighten up that bottom, and then go into the next side 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to do this until you reach one of those multiples. And I'm going to be doing 2 flowers, so that means I'm going to need 44 of those stitches. So now that I've finished this first row, where I have 1 less than the multiple, so I have 43 stitches, I'm going to either chain 2 or do a stacked single crochet. So the reason that stacked single crochets might be nice for this pattern is a lot of our edges are going to be chains, so it kind of just leaves like a cleaner look. So you can either chain 2 like this, or you turn your work, make a single crochet into that first stitch, and then make a single crochet into this 1 loop, like so. And so that's your stacked single crochet. So now we're going to chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet. Make 3 more double crochets. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. 3 more double crochets. So repeating the same pattern down the entire row. And then you're going to do 1 last double crochet into the chain so that your number stays the same. Next, we're going to chain 2 or stack single crochet and turn our work. We're going to make 1 double crochet. And then we're going to chain 2, skip 2, double crochet. We're going to do 2 double crochets into this gap. So when I say into the gap, it means that you're not going into the chain directly, you're just going straight into the gap. And then we're going to make 1 double crochet right after. Now we're going to chain 4, make a treble crochet in the middle gap here, so the next gap. And again, we're going right into the gap, we're not going into a stitch. Chaining 4 again. And double crocheting right before the next gap. Then we're going to reflect that pattern. So 2 double crochets into the gap, one after, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, and then we're going to do 2 double crochets into this gap, one after, chain 4, do a treble crochet into your next gap, chain 4 again, and double crochet right before your next gap. Then do 2 double crochets into your gap, one right after, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, and then you're going to do 2 double crochets into the gap, and one right after. Then we're going to chain 2 or stacked single crochet, turn our work, and then we're going to chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, we're going to do 2 double crochets into the gap, one after, and then we're going to chain 5, single crochet right before this treble crochet, but still into the gap, 1 single crochet into the treble crochet, one after, and then chain 5 again. Then you're going to double crochet right before the next gap, do 2 double crochets into the gap, and one right after. Then you're going to chain 5, do a single crochet right before the treble crochet, a single crochet into the treble crochet, and one after, chain 5 again, double crochet right before your next gap, do 2 double crochets into the gap, one right after, and then one more right after. So essentially, if you still have another flower, you're not going to do this extra double crochet until the end of your row. You would just continue by chaining 5 and going to your next flower. Starting our next row, we can either do a stacked single crochet or chain 2, turning our work, and then we're going to do 1 double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, and then we're going to do 3 double crochets into the gap. We're going to chain 4 and treble crochet into the middle of those 3 single crochets. So you're going into the second single crochet. Chaining 4, doing 3 double crochets in your next gap, one double crochet right after, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, do 3 double crochets into your next gap, chain 4, do a treble crochet into the middle of those 3 single crochets, chain 4, do 3 double crochets in the next gap, 1 double crochet right after, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 double crochet right after. If you have more flowers, you're going to start chaining 4 and go into your next flower, making your next petal, repeating that same pattern until you reach the end of your flowers. Then we're going to chain 2 or stack single crochet and turn our work. We're going to chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet. Do 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet. And now that we're at the petal, we're just going to kind of pretend like it's not there. So we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, skip past the gap and do 3 double crochets, one double crochet right after the gap, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, do 2 double crochets in the gap, 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2, and double crochet, 3 double crochets into the gap, chain 2, skip past the gap and do 3 double crochets, one double crochet right after, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, 2 double crochets in the gap, 1 right after, and then if you're at the end of your row, you're doing 1 last double crochet. If you're not at the end of your row, you're just going to keep doing these 4 double crochets with a chain 2 gap in between, all the way across your row until you reach the end. And so now we finished 1 flower, and so we're just going to be repeating this pattern over and over and over until it reaches the length that you want it to be. So I'm going to show you 1 more set of these flowers, and then once I finish that, if you're wanting to make another set of the flowers, just skip back in the video and re-watch. But if you feel like you've got it from here, just do this until it reaches the end, and once it's as long as you want it to be, you're going to chain 1 and cut off your work and make a second panel identical to this. So either way, if you're unsure how to start your second panel, you are going to be skipping back to the beginning of the video and re-watching from the beginning to get to this section, and then just repeating this as many times as you need to in order to make it match the length of what will then be your first panel. So now we're chaining 2, we're doing a stacked single crochet to start our next flower. Doing 1 double crochet, chaining 2, skipping 2 and double crocheting, doing 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after, chaining 4, doing a treble crochet into your next gap, chaining 4, and double crocheting right before your next gap, doing 2 double crochets into that next gap, and 1 right after, chaining 2, skipping 2, and double crocheting, doing 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after, chaining 4, treble crocheting into the middle of these gaps, so your next gap, chaining 4 again, and double crocheting right before your next gap, 2 double crochets into your next gap, 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, do 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after. For our next row, we are doing a stacked single crochet or chaining 2. Chaining 2, skipping 2 and double crocheting, doing 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after, chaining 5, single crocheting right before your treble crochet into the gap, 1 single crochet into the treble crochet, and 1 single crochet right after the treble crochet, chaining 5, and double crocheting right before your next gap. Then doing 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 right after, chain 5, single crochet right before your treble crochet into the gap, 1 single crochet into the treble crochet, and 1 right after, chaining 5, double crocheting right before your next gap, 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after. If you're not at the end of your row, you're going to repeat from here, so chaining 5 and starting your next petal. Otherwise, you're doing your last double crochet. Then we're going to chain 2, we'll do our stacked single crochet, do 1 double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, do 3 double crochets into the gap, chain 4, do a treble crochet into the second single crochet, so right in the middle, chain 4 again, and do 3 double crochets into the next gap, and 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, 3 double crochets into the gap, chain 4, do a treble crochet into the second single crochet, chain 4, and do 3 double crochets into the gap, one right after, chain 2, skip 2 and do a double crochet, do 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 right after, and then this is either the end of your row or you're going to continue chaining 4 and going and starting your next petal. Starting your next row, chaining 2 or doing a stacked single crochet, chaining 2, skipping 2 and double crocheting, doing 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet, 3 into the gap, chain 2, skip to the next gap and do 3 double crochets, one double crochet right after, chain 2, skip 2 double crochet, 2 double crochets into the gap, 1 right after, chain 2, skip 2 double crochet, 3 double crochets into your petal, chain 2, skip to the next gap and do 3 double crochets, one right after, chain 2, skip 2 double crochet, 2 double crochets into the gap, and 1 right after. If this isn't the end of your row, you're continuing these gaps and 4 double crochets. If it is the end of your row, you're doing your last double crochet. And so there we go. This is the base of your vest. And I think I'm going to do another set of flowers and then I'm going to finish it off. But if you are stopping here, you're chaining 1 and cutting off your work. But either way, once you finish this panel, skip back to the beginning of the video and repeat this process for your second panel, making them the same size. And then I'll come back to you once I have 2 panels done. Okay, I just finished my 2 panels, and one thing I decided to do off camera was to just add a single crochet row where I single crocheted into every stitch, including the chains, and I went right into the chains, not into the gap, so that the top and the bottom of both panels is single crochets, just because then when you're stitching it together, you're not having to go into a chain that like might not be the perfect size, and it might be kind of like moving around instead of going into like a solid stitch. So if you have already finished your panels and you want to add that extra single crochet row, feel free to. Otherwise, the only thing you're going to have to remember is that when you're stitching them together, you want to have the same side on both panels next to each other. So basically, let's say that this side I don't have my single crochets, then I would make sure that on this panel as well, my side without single crochets is also on the bottom. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, just it's going to be like one tiny row off, and sometimes visually that will actually make a difference. Other times it's really not that noticeable, but just in case, to be safe. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch together our rows for the shoulder section to create like a neck hole, and then we're going to put ties down here for the side for like a sleeve. Basically, when you're doing the neck hole, you need to do way less than you're going to expect to. I know it's going to seem like you're doing such a big gap for your neck, but this isn't like fabric where it's going to stretch so much to get over your head. It has like a limited amount of stretchiness, and so you don't want to make it so close together that you can't get your head through. So for mine, I'm honestly probably just going to be stitching together like the edge 4 or 5 stitches, and then I'm going to leave the rest open. If you start off with that and then you try it on and you're like, actually I want to have more room and it's fitting over my head super easily, feel free to do more, but I would not recommend like doing like this big of a section and then not trying it on before like you're completely done, you've like weaved in your ends and everything, because then you're probably not going to have enough space for your head to fit through. So what we're going to do now is find which side of the panel you want to be on the outside. So I already have it where I want this panel to be on the outside on this side and this to be on the outside on this side. It doesn't, again, make that much of a difference, just check that it is the side of the flowers that you want it to be. One other thing that you want to make sure is that your side with the gap on the edge is lining up with the side with the gap on your other side. So you're just basically going to have the exact same alignment of both panels so that they're matching up perfectly. Okay, once you've found where you need everything, where everything's aligned, you have your good side out, then you're going to turn it inside out. So basically the reason we're doing this is because when we stitch this top part together, it's going to create like a little seam, and we don't want that sticking out like on your shoulder. So just make sure that like basically honestly flip it like this so that you know everything is lined up the way it should be. But as you can see, this is my like worst side, so that's going to be the inside. Now what I'm going to do is go into this top corner here, put my hook through the top of both panels, and then tie the yarn on. So we're going to go through, pull the yarn through, and then we have 4 loops on both panels. So basically 2 loops on each, making 4 total. We have 1, 2, then 3, and 4. And when we're going to be crocheting into the outside loops, we're going to go into the first one and the fourth one. So starting here, first one, fourth one, single crochet. And just make sure that you're lining these up so that both panels are going into the same stitch. They're not misaligned. And again, I'm only going 4 stitches over, but of course you can go more than that as long as you're trying it on and making sure that works. Once I've done my 4, then I'm gonna go into the 5th one, make a slip stitch, chain 1, and cut off my loop. And then pull through. Then we're going to go to the other top corner, go through the top, go through the top, tie on the yarn again, go through and put the yarn on your hook, and then for this we're still going to do 4. So first and fourth single crochet, first and fourth single crochet. And again, if you are doing more on the other side, just match it so that both sides have the same number of stitches over that you're doing these single crochets. There's my 4, and I'm going to do my 5th with a slip stitch, chain 1, and cut off my work. So now we have the top part connected, and I already know from making another top like this that this will definitely fit for me, but make sure to try it on if you don't already know it's going to work, and honestly just try just in case. I'm just super lazy and I'm not going to, but I really should, to be honest, just in case. Now we're going to do those side ties, and so it's definitely optional whether you leave it inside out right now or whether you flip it. I'm going to leave it inside out, and at the very end I'm going to flip it back to the right way. What you want to do now is decide how wide your armholes are going to be. So obviously you can make this just fitting your arm exactly and then have the rest loose, or you can make it further down, or you could do like halfway and the bottom. There's so many options with how you tie it. You could even do like a crisscross like corset tie where you like loop the chain through every other, like crossed over, kind of like shoelaces. So many options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a tie in the middle, tie in the bottom, and call it there. What I'm going to do is go about halfway down. So I'm going to find in between my 2nd and my 3rd flower, because it turns out I actually did 4, I didn't do 5. And I'm going to go into the side here, putting my hook through, and I want to go through 2 loops there, and then I'm going to tie on my yarn, and then I'm going to chain about 30. And just checking in, I'm going to make it a little bit longer, so I'm going to go to 40. I'm going to chain 1 more extra and then I can cut it off. Feel free to crochet back down into them with like single crochets, half double crochets, whatever, but I just want them to be chain ties. So I'm cutting it off there, pulling through to tighten it up, and then I'm going to go to the bottom corner and I'm going to put my hook through, tie on the yarn, and chain 40 again. You just basically want to be recreating whatever number you did for this top one, or making it a little bit shorter. Chaining 1 extra and cutting it off. Now what I need to do is find the exact same spot on this back side of the panel and make reflecting ties so that these two can like tie together here. So making that exact same process for these two ties on the back side of this side of the top. And then just making sure for the bottom corner that you're recreating whatever number of chains you did for the bottom corner on the other side of the panel. And now we've finished the 4 ties on this half of the top. Now we need to go to the other half of the top and do our 4 ties. I would just make sure that you are going into the same stitch, so if it's hard to tell, just like run all the way across that row and then you'll find that spot on the other side. And then your last bottom corner. Alright, and so our last step before leaving in our ends is, if you haven't already turned it back the right way, you're going to turn it around again, and then now our last step is weaving in our ends. I'm going to show one example of weaving our ends and do the rest later off camera, but if you need a more in-depth tutorial, I do have a longer tutorial on weaving your ends in my ultimate beginner tutorial, so feel free to check that out if you want. The easiest way to thread your darning needle is to lay the yarn over your needle, pinch it and pull it off, wiggle it through the gap, and then you can just pull it through. And then we're going to go through the tops of the stitches into the stitches themselves. And there we go, we can cut it off. And so now you're just going to recreate that with all the rest of your ends, but otherwise we are done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to check out my Depop for crochet stuff I'm selling, and my Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, whatever, for more like up-to-date updates about stuff that hasn't been posted yet. If you have any questions, make sure to let me know down below and I will do my best to help. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye! Now we're going to pull through 1. Okay, thanks for that actually. Skipping 2 and double crocheting and double crochet. Oh my god.